Hi, everybody. Welcome into the New Orleans Saints post-game show presented by Mercedes-Benz. Well, the New Orleans Saints winning streak was snapped at 9 by the Philadelphia Eagles today as they fall 24-21. And we go out now to Lincoln Financial Field to our very
He ran for more than 100 yards. He probably threw for more than 200 yards. He had a really solid day, did not turn over the football. And so from that standpoint, Philadelphia did exactly what it was that Philadelphia wanted to do. The Saints, we're not accustomed to seeing the Saints defensively be gashed, and we're not accustomed to seeing the Saints offensively not being able to get much moving until the second half. So those things caught up. And then on top of that, Will Lutz, who's about as clutch a kicker as there is in the NFL, missed 2 in this game. So all of those things come back to haunt you on the scoreboard. Saints really couldn't get a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts. He is a phenomenal threat in the running game. He's mobile, he's fast, and it was tough for them to get him surrounded and corralled and keep him in the pocket and make him a passer. And as a result, he was able to gain some big chunk plays against the Saints. And look, sometimes the other team, you just have to say, hey, they get paid too. They had a week to game plan. They put in the perfect game plan for this rookie quarterback in this game against this defense. Whether or not they can continue to do that in Philadelphia, I don't know. But for one day, on any given Sunday in the NFL, this can happen to you.
Absolutely, JD, and you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Offense, defense, special teams all kind of had their moment, especially there at the end with that onside kick that was oh so close. I think we were all holding our breath on that one, and I believe we're going to be having Sean Payton come to the podium here shortly, and here he is, Sean Payton.
Hey, Sean, the offense.
Some technical difficulties right now.
We rushed through about 70 yards.
But I believe we will be having Coach Payton here at the podium here shortly. Until then, we will stick with myself and John DeShazier. But JD, you were mentioning, offense, defense, and special teams kind of had their moments today again with that onside kick there at the end. And it was the first game in 56 games for the Saints that they allowed a 100-yard rusher, and not just one. It was 2, in fact, and the first one being Miles Sanders. Rough night for the defense.
Well, rough night, and Philadelphia set the tone early. Philadelphia had pretty much a devil-may-care attitude, went for it on 4th down 4 times in this game, and including a couple of times, I think, in the first quarter alone. Philadelphia wanted to possess the football, keep the Saints offense off the field, keep the Saints defense on the field, just kind of grind it out against them, and they were able to do that.
I believe we are getting Sean Payton back. It might just be his audio. Not quite yet, excuse me. But yeah, JD, you mentioned it. The defense really set the tone, the Philadelphia offense set the tone. The Saints defense kind of struggled to keep up there. But when you're talking about the Saints offense, Taysom Hill, it seemed like, he was getting in his comfort zone. And then it just kind of felt like the Saints offense wasn't on the same page, same rhythm.
Yeah, it kind of fell apart there down the stretch. They had a couple of touchdowns in the third quarter. The offense really looked good on those drives, and then they couldn't really get another sustained drive. And when you fall behind against a team like Philadelphia, the advantage Philadelphia has is the front 4 alone had 30.5 sacks coming into this game. So you can just rush the front 4, play the other 7 players in coverage, and you can just kind of play back and get soft and really force the team to beat you underneath, force the quarterback to have patience. Saints weren't able to do that in this game. Philadelphia was able to get that rush, generate it just with the front 4. And when they did blitz, the Saints beat them up with it. So they decided, we'll go back to what we're doing best. And the Saints offensive line had a rough one in this one. They've had some really good games along this 9-game winning streak. but the Saints offensive line had a tough one in this
Well,
one.
you saw guard Nick Easton leave the game with a concussion. Cesar Ruiz, the rookie, entered on that offensive line. We're used to seeing this offensive line, not really miss a beat. You got Teron Armstead back this week. What do you think? Was it a miscommunication issue? Was it Teron Armstead returning back to the line? What was it for the Saints offensive line that, they didn't play what we're used to seeing?
Well, Philly's really good. I mean, sometimes you just have to admit the other team is really, really good. They had 3 defensive linemen that came into this game with 5.5 sacks at least. And we say, okay, when the Saints do that, we think it's phenomenal. When another team does that, we might underplay it a little bit because the Saints are on that 9-game winning streak. But they came in with some guys who could get after the passer, and the Saints knew that coming into this game. And unfortunately, when you're behind as the Saints were, especially when you fall behind 17-0, now you put yourself in a position where you got to throw it to play catch up, and they can just kind of pin their ears back. Of course, the front 4, you can put those other guys, the other 7 in the coverage, and you can force a team to try to beat you throwing the football. And if they got to continue to throw it and throw it and throw it, I guarantee you the offensive linemen who are getting those pass sets and getting back in the pro blocking and pass blocking, they're going to be just as fatigued as a defensive lineman who continues to rush. And the defensive lineman actually is going to have a little bit more adrenaline because he knows he doesn't have to worry about anything else. All he's got to do is rush the passer.
We're actually going to go back to Lincoln Financial to head coach Sean Payton.
So I don't know what
people you're talking about, but it's something that, there's various tempos we use, and that's what I would say.
The announcers were talking about sense of urgency, which I'm sure you love that term, but I didn't know if that was a getting in a play call thing or just getting the players to run the plays faster or whatever. So I just didn't know your thoughts on that.
I don't know either. And look, we always, we pay close attention to our tempo.
Sean, during that time in the game, just with Taysom Hill, is there any – sorry, there's some echo here. Is there any time where without Drew Brees, running that 2-minute offense can be a little bit tougher from a no-huddle standpoint, just with Taysom Hill and his knowledge of the offense? Is there any difference there or no?
Well, listen, absolutely. I think that's an easy question to answer. When you take someone who's played as long as Drew, is the 2-minute the same? It's obviously going to be different. Significantly, obviously, from an experience standpoint. All right, thank you, guys.
All right, that was head coach Sean Payton at Lincoln Financial Field. We will be getting you the live press conferences of other players here shortly at the stadium. Just a quick programming note, if players are not wearing their masks, we are not going to show them. You will still be able to hear their audio. So stay tuned on the broadcast. We will have a graphic up for you, but we will not be able to show you them. So just stay tuned to the post-game show presented by Mercedes-Benz. JD, you were talking a little bit about the Saints offense before we went back to Sean Payton. We've been talking about it for the last 3 weeks. The issue with Taysom Hill fumbling is now just that, an issue. It's his 10th fumble of the season. How do you address that other than going back to just the fundamentals?
Well, this one in this game, I know he fumbled it, but he was holding on to the ball. It's 4th down. He's trying to wait for his receivers to clear. It didn't happen, and so he gets sacked from behind. And I almost don't want to blame this one on him, but he still is responsible for holding on to the football. Now, that's 6 fumbles in the 4 games he started. Even if it was 5, that's still too many. He's got to protect the football. We know that. We know it's an issue that's got to be with him in his head. You probably want to get him out of his head mentally because it's got to be wearing on him right now because he knows he's not protecting the football. All you can do is drill him. You can go through the same drills that you've gone through training camp, and you've got to hope that the repetition will take and manifest in him, and that'll become second nature, because right now he's simply putting the ball on the ground a little too much. Even though I kind of want to give him a break on the one today, but still, it is attributed fumble to him. He did get sacked from behind. He did let it get on the ground, and they lose possession. Now, they were going to lose possession anyway because it was fourth down. But still, you want to see your quarterback, of all people, protect the football.
You're just a nice guy, JD. I understand. When you look at the Saints defense, there was a clear shift from the first half to the second half. Obviously, it didn't result in a win. But what was happening in the first half? It seems like there were missed tackles. There wasn't as much pressure up front. What adjustments did you see from the first half to the second half for the Saints defense?
Well, I think they got into a little bit more sync, and they got a little bit more discipline in the second half. The first half is simple. Jalen Hurts is an extra runner. So now all of a sudden you've got an extra threat out there, and people say, okay, well, just spy him. Well, that's a lot easier said than done. I mean, the guy is talented. He's not in the NFL just because he's cute. He actually knows how to play. And so when you put him out there in those situations, you got basically an extra running back who can throw. So now you have to have the discipline to be able to guard against both. And we saw it sometimes in this game where just the threat of him being able to run allowed some receivers to get open. So when you got to guard against both, it's difficult to do. It puts a lot of stress on the defense, and it takes some adjustments. I think the Saints adjusted to him accordingly in the second half. But by then, again, Philadelphia is ahead 17-0 at halftime, and the Eagles can dictate terms. And the team that dictates terms in the NFL is going to win the vast majority of the time.
I'm getting word that we'll be hearing from tight end Jared Cook and quarterback Taysom Hill here shortly, and we'll get you to that. Speaking of Jared Cook, how big, JD, first of all, your streak of player spotlights is alive, so congratulations on that. But how big has Jared Cook been for this Saints offense, and just being consistent and being that guy that they can go to when they need to down the road?
Well, when you get in the red zone, he's 6'7", so he's a huge target. And on this one, he played basically power forward to catch that touchdown. He posted up a smaller guy. The smaller guy couldn't get around him, couldn't get in front of him, couldn't bat it down, and so he ends up catching a touchdown, and it's a critical touchdown in this game. He's that kind of a big target. You want to see some consistency out of him, obviously, because we've seen Jared have some drops, not necessarily characteristic drops, but we've seen him have a couple of drops this season. You know, he's trying to work with a new quarterback. He got into a really good groove with Drew Brees down the stretch of last season. We assumed that they were going to pick right back up where they left off last season. That didn't happen, and then Drew Brees got hurt, so he had to kind of break in a whole new quarterback. We see some synchronicity going on between he and Taysom Hill now. You hope that that continues, because he is a critical part of what they want to do offensively as they go down the stretch.
Another critical part, JD, how big was that catch from Emmanuel Sanders from Taysom Hill? I mean, Taysom Hill wanted to launch it, you could tell, and Emmanuel Sanders just comes in clutch with that big one-handed grab.
Caught it while he's being interfered with. I mean, he's a really good player, and you'd like to see him get some more opportunities. But again, the Saints have a lot of weapons, so everybody can't get fed all the time, but you just saw what he is capable of doing when he gets those opportunities. He can beat a guy one-on-one, obviously. He can make a tough catch, as we just saw. He's got great hands. He's got great route running. There's no route that he can't run, so he can be extremely productive. He's another guy that you want to see him get in sync. But again, these guys, I won't say they have to start from ground zero when Drew Brees comes back, but they do have to reestablish the chemistry. Now, he and Drew Brees had gotten into a really good groove, and then he goes out for a couple of games after being diagnosed with COVID-19, and then Drew Brees gets injured. So can they resync again when Drew Brees comes back? That's going to be critical to what the Saints want to do offensively.
It's kind of crazy to think the firepower that the Saints offense is going to have when hopefully everyone is healthy here soon. We're not sure of Drew Brees' status for next week, but it's kind of insane to think about the offensive firepower. Speaking of that, JD, Alvin Kamara, he had 11 rushes tonight for 50 yards and 1 touchdown, and then receiving, he had 7 receptions for 44 yards. How big has he been for the Saints team, and do you wish he was utilized a little bit more tonight?
Well, again, you got to spread it around. You got Michael Thomas, you got Emmanuel Sanders, you got Jared Cook, you've got guys that
JD,
you want to get the football to, because you
interrupt you
can't
real
just
quick, because here is tight end Jared Cook.
Hey, Jared. Sean Payton talked about the slow start you all got off to, and what do you sort of attribute to it? What do you attribute that to in the first half?
All right, we will have Jared Cook's audio here for you shortly. In the meantime, Jared Cook finished today's game 3 catches for 37 yards, 1 huge touchdown for the Saints down the stretch. As we bring back in John DeShazier to talk a little bit about that. JD, actually here is Jared Cook.
You got to go out there and put up points the best you can. So that's on us. We got to keep the chains moving, be able to keep the drives alive, and be able to score points.
You want to move? You want to just do it now?
At the end of our drives.
Next one's from Luke Johnson.
Hold on 1 sec, guys. We got a little.
All right, go ahead, Luke.
Hey, Jared, it seemed like you guys were kind of trying to go quick today, especially early. Was that just –
Can you actually start that for me one more time, please?
Sure. It seemed like you guys were trying to go quick with the passing game, especially early. Was that just because of the 4-man rush that the Eagles had? I guess that's my question.
No, not necessarily. We knew that their D-line coming in was going to be kind of like the studs of their defense. So we knew that going into the game. We knew what they had at the rest of the field between their linebackers and their DBs. So not necessarily. It's just part of the game plan, but I don't think that's because of the rush. I think we had confidence in our O-line to hold up against anybody with a 4-man rush.
Next one's from Nick Underhill.
Are they unique in their ability to get pressure with just 4? And what challenge is that when they can drop 7 every play and, get pressure the way they do?
Absolutely. Definitely unique. And like I said before, we knew that going into the week, all this week, that their front 4 were kind of the big guys of that defense. In terms of their back end, you just got to hit the zones of the defense, man. Whatever they're giving you, you got to find the pockets and find the holes in that defense. Even though they're dropping 8, we knew that that back end could not keep up with us and the talent that we had on offense. So we just got to do a better job of converting. And like I said before, just keeping the chains moving. But they just got the upper hand on that one today.
Next one's from Luke Johnson.
Jared, it might be an unfair question to ask right after this game's over, but can these sorts of things at this stage of the season be good and kind of refocus, or is it just stakes are too high to drop a game like this, knowing that you guys had the number 1 seed kind of in your grasp going into this?
Yeah, definitely don't think we should have dropped this game. Definitely think this was not a good one to go out on, but definitely one we can learn from. I think it's better that it happens now than later. But this is definitely a game that we have to get better and like I said, again, learn from, because you always want to play your best ball in December going into the playoffs. So we have to continue to improve on that. And everything's cool when you ride high and mighty. It's just how do you handle those situations when you're number 1? Definitely wanted to stay in that spot where we were, but like I said, things happen. This is a game that we have to learn and continue to grow from and get better from as a team, and use this as an example and as a lesson, but also as a stepping stone to get better as a team.
We're all set. Thank you, Jared.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys, put your questions in for Taysom Hill and we'll get going. First one's from Andrew Doak.
Hey, Taysom, in the second half there, when you guys were trying to run the 2-minute offense, when you got the ball starting about 6:22, is there a certain part of your offense that from a no huddle standpoint, you and Sean Payton are still trying to be able to get on the same page. And I asked that just because it seemed like you guys chewed up a lot of clock, and I know you had to huddle sometimes. I mean, do you feel like you guys can fully operate no huddle at this point 4 weeks in, or is that still kind of a work in progress?
No, I feel like we can. I think there's an element of what we're doing offensively is so personnel driven. And so I think sometimes when we're obviously trying to go fast and knew we were up against the clock and needed to score, but we wanted to make sure we were running our best stuff. And some of that, as I mentioned, is personnel driven, where you start to do 2-minute stuff, you're really limited in your substitutions and what you can do. So that was really the reason why we were doing what we did at that point.
Next one's from Rod Walker.
Hey, Taysom, Sean talked about the slow, flat first half. What do you attribute that to? The offense just not being able to move.
You know, I don't know. It's hard to say just without watching the film, but I just felt like there were little things every drive that killed drives, you know, and we weren't converted on third down, and some of those were favorable situations, you know, where we were third and short and you know, manageable, where you're trying to get to. So look, I at the end of the day, I think we obviously came out flat, and I think you gotta credit Philly for the way that they came out and played us, and they got after us the first half.
Next one's from Sean Fazend.
Hey, Taysom, what did you see on the fourth down where you were sacked and fumbled in the fourth quarter there?
Yeah, we were trying to take a shot. You know, we felt like we were going to get a look that would be advantageous to go over the top, and we didn't get that. And so as I was scrambling, I was trying to see if, you know, Traquan on the sideline had kind of uncovered and he had worked to get open. And so as I was doing that, obviously I got hit in the back. You know, so that was the intent there. I think in hindsight, you know, maybe it's one of those where you just throw a ball up to Emmanuel knowing it's fourth down. But I was really trying to see if Traquan came open on the sideline. Was my thought process.
Next one's from Nick Underhill.
Taysom, how do you navigate the balance between staying in the pocket and trying to find someone down the field and running when pressure's coming in? Yeah, I think, look, it's a work in progress. You know, I think sometimes they get you and sometimes you get them. And I would say that when I feel pressure, my eyes are down the field and I'm trying to find a guy to get the ball to. And then it's just finding that balance of, man, you could go and get 7, 8, 9, 10 yards before contact. And I think it's one of those things that you know, we'll, you know, in the future continue to be more and more comfortable with that. You know, certainly from a scrambling aspect and what our rules are and our receivers, you know, expecting to get the ball when they see me outside the pocket.
Next one's from Luke Johnson.
Taysom, is there like an added like stakes added at this stage of the season to losing games like this? Does it feel any different losing this now than it does in September or October? Just considering that you guys had the kind of inside track and the number 1 seed.
Yeah, look, we know every game is important in the NFL, and so while I would say that every game is important, we knew what was at stake. We knew what was at stake here. You know, which again is why, you know, as I think about that game, we should have played better in the first half, you know, and I got to take some blame for that. And as a quarterback and doing that, but you know, I think at the end of the day, this one does sting a little bit because we knew what was at stake and we worked really hard to put ourselves in a situation to be in the driver's seat where we can control our own destiny. Yeah, I would say that this feels a little bit different.
Next one's from Mike Triplett.
Taysom, I know the circumstances were a little different on that lost fumble since it would have done you no good to tuck it in that circumstance, but is it frustrating to lose another fumble after that was a big talking point this week?
mean, you never want to lose a fumble. It's fourth down, you're extending the play, you get hit in the back, you know. It is what it is. As you mentioned, I don't know what the outcome would have been differently if you tuck the ball versus trying to make something happen in that situation.
We're all set. Thank you, Taysom.
Can I go out this way? Or
yeah. All right, you guys, put your questions in for Malcolm Jenkins, and we'll get started. First one, Johnson.
Hey Malcolm, what kind of stress did Jalen Hurts put on you just with his legs today, and whether it was extending plays or those design run plays?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious that his ability to run and not only put stress on us as a defense in the run game, but also in the pass game. His ability to scramble just adds another element into the run fits. You need all 11 to be able to stop the run. So they did a great job. Obviously giving him opportunistic looks, good runs, good passes to be able to take care of the football and not put him in really harm's way. And he executed. So hats off to them.
From Rod Walker.
Hey, Malcolm, how tough is this loss to swallow, just considering what all you all had in front of you as the number one seed and everything?
Still got it in front of us. We just got to play. At the end of the day, you can't control everything but the game in front of you. We thought we had an opportunity. Didn't play well early in the game. Dug ourselves back out. So obviously, frustrating, but for us, our goals are very much still alive and in front of us. Really good opponent coming up next week. So it's really about making sure that we make the corrections and show up better next week.
Next one's from Chris Hagan.
Malcolm, how long did it take you guys to adjust to what the Eagles were doing with Jalen Hurts? And I guess what was that adjustment specifically? It looked like in the second half you're trying to bring more pressure on him.
Well, no, it really wasn't much of an adjustment. We played the same calls throughout the game. We executed a little better in the second half and created some negative plays, got them behind the sticks that helped us out on third down. But nothing really elaborate or unique. We just executed the plan better, and that's what we needed, to start the game. So a little bit too late.
Next one's from Mike Triplett.
Can you explain what happened on the 82-yard touchdown run? And I know with you in particular, it looks like he just got his stiff arm right in the exact right place, maybe to take you out of that one. But in general, what happened to free him up so much?
Sounds like you know what happened.
But obviously, there's usually more than just one defender, to stop a guy from having the rest of the play. What do you think happened on that play in general?
I mean, for me as a post safety, whatever happens up front doesn't really matter. It's my job to get him down and make sure that a bad play doesn't turn worse. I didn't do that, so that touchdown is on me.
Next one's from Andrew Doak.
I know this is a very general question, but Sean Payton mentioned he felt like guys came out flat. What do you think contributed to that?
I don't know. I think anytime you don't execute, it's hard to have energy and therefore you come out flat. So I think that the biggest thing is, we didn't execute early. And so it's hard to generate energy. It's hard to generate momentum when you're not playing well. And that leads to, looking flat. So I think, for us is just honing in on the details, make sure everybody does their job, not trying to do too much. And then make the plays that come to you without forcing it. And we got to that later, but obviously a little bit too late.
We're all set. Appreciate it, Malcolm.
Got any other headphones? Yeah. Yeah.
All right, JD, as we await Cam Jordan at the podium, we believe is up next at Lincoln Financial Field. JD, you just heard from Malcolm Jenkins about coming out flat, and it's like you mentioned, it's hard to gain that energy and momentum. But why do you think that was the case? Do you think it was just, hey, it's Jalen Hurts, and they're still going to be the same 3-8-1 Eagles team?
I mean, conceivably, that's part of it. I mean, when you won 9 straight, you kind of feel like you've fallen into some winning habits, and maybe you do look at the record of the other team, and maybe you do feel like it's a free ride. And maybe you see a rookie quarterback and you say, you know what, we've confused Tom Brady and we've confused Matt Ryan, and we should be able to confuse this kid too. And, you can't win a game on paper. It never has happened in the history of sports. You got to go out and actually do the work, and the Saints didn't do the work early. And when they fell behind, you get into a situation, as I mentioned before, where the other team is dictating who you are and what you are. And when they can dictate what you do defensively, and they can dictate what you do offensively by proxy on that, then it's going to be difficult to win a game that way. And the Saints, made a nice comeback again, but they didn't make enough clutch plays. They didn't make enough clutch stops, or they didn't get enough third down conversions. And then again, you mix in the 2 missed field goals, and you just had a day where it was just subpar all 3 phases for the Saints.
Jalen Hurts finished the day with 106 rushing yards, 17 of 30 for passing, and then 167 passing yards. And JD, I hate to just move on to next week after this loss, but that doesn't really bode well for a team who's going against Patrick Mahomes, who can do all of those things that Jalen Hurts did tonight and maybe a little bit better.
Yeah, but all these things are individual units. I mean, who would have thought that the Saints would beat Tampa Bay 38-3 on the road? So every game is an individual unit. The Saints team we saw tonight can be a totally different opposite team than the one we see on next Sunday, because all it takes is cleaning up a couple of mistakes. On the 82-yard touchdown run, from what I saw on the replay, looked like Quan Alexander just jumped the wrong gap. And so you jump the wrong gap. That's the difference between a 2-yard gain and an 82-yard touchdown. So, those disciplinary things can be corrected. How quickly can you correct them, and can you correct them against a team with Patrick Mahomes? Of course you can, because, we've seen it done before. Patrick Mahomes, as good as they are, isn't quite infallible. I think he had 3 interceptions today against Miami, and they still were able to overcome that. But now that there might be some opportunities with him out there on the football field if you can generate the right amount of pressure on him. And he's not quite the runner that Jalen Hurts is. He's elusive, but he's not a guy who, you're going to run specific quarterback runs for and get him on the corner and get him out there and put him to the hazard. So you might have a better opportunity to keep him in the pocket than you do maybe a Jalen Hurts. And those are some of the things that the Saints are going to have to take advantage of, because, look, we know they've got weapons. We know they've got Tyreek Hill, the cheetah, who can run fast and run past anybody in the league. We know they've got Travis Kelce. We also know they have Nicole Hardman. They've got the running back from LSU. And so they've got a lot of weapons that are really formidable, but there is no such thing as an unbeatable team. And as I said, each one of these games is its own 16th of a unit. So hopefully, if you're the Saints, you're not the exact same team as we saw out here today. And again, I think some of the discipline issues might be cleaned up because you are playing a different style quarterback. We know Patrick Mahomes is not going to run it the way Jalen Hurts did. He ain't going to run 400 yards, but he is elusive. So you hope that the Saints might be able to get their discipline issues together in that game and maybe clean up some of the other things.
All right, JD, I feel like I've been too much of a negative Nelly throughout this whole post-game show. What are some positives? The Saints lose 24-21. Obviously, it's never great when you win, but what are some positives that you can take away from the Saints team going into next week?
Ain't no positives from this one. I mean, let's be real.
You're supposed to bring me back, JD. You're supposed to bring me back.
Look, they fell behind. I mean, let's be real. There's not a whole lot of things to be doing backflips over in this game. You give up 2 100-yard rushes. That's difficult. On offense, you can't get anything going until the second half, and maybe specifically the third quarter, but you can't get enough going. You can't get enough sync and rhythm going. So there are not a lot of positives to pull out of this one. If you want a positive, it might be Thomas Morstead. And when the punter is the biggest positive coming out of the game, you didn't have a really good game.
JD, you mentioned Quan Alexander. Obviously, the Saints gave up that big 82-yard run to Miles Sanders, and he went in the wrong gap. But how big of an addition has Quan Alexander been for this team? Because I feel like he's taken a lot of the pressure off of Demario Davis and allowed him to do a lot more, which has opened up a lot more for Quan Alexander himself, really.
Yeah, I mean, when you get a guy and he comes in and he immediately starts his first game, that tells you the kind of talent he is. Quan Alexander is really, really good at playing linebacker. He just has to kind of marry up his discipline at all times. And look, it happens in the NFL. They just as easily could have had the running back, Miles Sanders, could have hit the wrong hole and run right into Quan Alexander. He just made a great read, and he's got that kind of home run speed, and he was able to take advantage of it. But in the NFL, guys bust plays all the time, and sometimes they don't result in 82-yard touchdowns. This time it just happened to. So Quan Alexander has made a lot of plus plays since he's joined the Saints. You want to see him stack more on top of it. That play might have been a bit of a gamble for him. Might have been able to get away with that in the past, so maybe he felt like, okay, I can get away with it this time. But now the lesson learned from that is, okay, handle your responsibility, handle your business. As Sean Payton says, do your job and let everybody else worry about doing their job. And when you do your job, you trust that your teammates have you back.
JD, we saw some reports earlier this morning about Drew Brees. What have you been hearing about Drew Brees and his status next week?
I mean, saw him throw a little bit in the little bit of practice that we're able to see, but nothing heavy. I mean, he was out there in a baseball cap. He was not out there in a helmet. So, it doesn't look like, we certainly didn't think he was going to play this week. And the Saints can proceed with caution. Even now, they're 3-1 without Drew Brees. They're still one victory away from winning the NFC South. And you want to go in the playoffs as healthy as possible. So if you go in as the 1 seed or the 2 seed, you want to secure a home game, obviously, but it's more important than anything to be healthy, completely healthy, because this Saints team is built to win on the road. I think they can win anywhere, to be honest with you. Now, winning at Green Bay, of course, it's going to be difficult, but I do believe they're built to win just about anywhere. I think, defensively, you hope that this game is a blip because they've been playing such great defense for 9 straight games, so that they have it in them. You hope that this is not going to be the offense we're going to see. And we know this is not going to be the offense we see because Drew Brees is going to come back. He's the all-time passing leader in the NFL, in history of the NFL. And so we know that the offense is going to be a bit better and it's going to run more smoothly when he gets back. So it's just a matter of, you want to be healthy. Even if you don't get the 1 seed, you want to be healthy because I believe this team is built to win anywhere on the road. I think this team is capable of winning the NFC. Certainly it believes it's capable of winning the NFC. And we'll just have to see how it goes going forward.
Let them know about Drew Brees, JD. We will hear from defensive end Cameron Jordan here shortly, but first we're going to let you watch some highlights from today's Saints vs. Eagles game.
Sanders is buried. Malcolm Jenkins returning to Philly, read it all the way. And Saints take over after the Eagles held it for 8 minutes and 11 seconds. Taysom Hill fires, and it's caught by Michael Thomas.
Around him from the Eagles organization.
Little pitch, Kamara trying to get to the edge, gets a block, and he'll walk in for the touchdown. And Hurts will not get there. He is completely stacked up. The Saints were ready. Catches 74 yards. And the fake to Kamara. Hill sets up, going deep, looking for Sanders. He has got it! Touchdown! 2nd and 10. Hill looking, going end zone for Cook. Oh, what a catch for the touchdown!
All right, that was highlights from the Saints' 24-21 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. We are awaiting Lincoln at Lincoln Financial Field for defensive end Cameron Jordan. In the meantime, we have senior reporter for NewOrleansSaints.com, John DeShazier. JD, we've talked about offense, we've talked about defense, the special teams at the end there, but Will Lutz, we're used to seeing him really just automatic, and it's been a little bit uncharacteristic here lately. What improvements can he make throughout the week to kind of get back to that consistent kicker that we're used to seeing?
Well, you just hope it's just a mental thing. That's 3 missed field goals in the last 2 weeks. And 2 of them have been, extremely makeable chip shots, really, for Will Lutz. So the snap, hold, kick operation, there must be something there that's not quite fluid. And if that's not the issue, then he's inside his head. Now, generally, Will Lutz is one of the strongest mental guys that you see on the team. You see a lot of things about kickers where they can be kind of quirky, they can be a little bit odd, and a lot of times those guys, what happens to kickers in the NFL, a lot of times you see guys be journeymen because they get inside their head and all of a sudden they can't be consistent, and now it's like, a guy who's got the yips when he's putting. He all of a sudden can't do it quite as smoothly. I don't think that's going to happen with Will Lutz. I'm certain that the Saints don't believe it's going to happen with Will Lutz. But look, 3 missed field goals in 2 games, that is a huge issue. That's something that's got to be cleaned up, whether it's him, whether it's the snap, whether it's the hold, whatever it is with the operation. If it's something that's in his head, then he's going to have to get out of his head and he's going to have to make those kicks, because the Saints believe this is the guy who can make game-winning kicks in playoff games and in the Super Bowl. And so you've got to be able to count on him in those situations. Right now, they can't feel really great about it. You hope one of the things that happens is you get back home, you get inside the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, the elements calm down a little bit, and you hope that he gets his confidence back there. But Will Lutz, we do remember, set an NFL record for consecutive field goals made on the road. It was snapped last year at Chicago, but he's been a phenomenal kicker everywhere. So he's just having a little bit of an issue right now. You hope that they can smooth it out quickly.
I'm getting word that we'll be going to Saints defensive end Cam Jordan here soon. Staying on special teams, JD, you had Tommy Lee Lewis back there returning punts for the Saints. Have you any updates for us on Deontay Harris and his injury that had him out for today's game?
Not sure yet. He practiced this week, and then he was a late scratch for the game. So obviously that neck stinger, that neck injury is something that flared up on him. And so he wasn't able to go. You hope with a couple of weeks rest
JD,
now
we're
that
actually
he
going to
might be able
interrupt
to
you
get back
here
on the
as
field.
defensive end Cam Jordan.
All right, we have Cam Jordan here. First question's from Luke Johnson.
Hey, Cam, how difficult was Hurts tonight, just especially with his legs? It seemed like he was just kind of making you guys run a lot on the edges there.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, we didn't play disciplined enough football in that first half. Again, it's more so focusing on what we can do to affect the quarterback, and that's making one-dimensional. I think we failed to do that as a collective.
Next one's from Mike Triplett.
Cam, I know you haven't looked ahead yet because of the 24-hour rule, but you get a chance to bounce back now against one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. How much do you relish a challenge of getting back on the field against Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, next week we have to tighten up. That first half we let some big runs go, something that we haven't seen in the last couple of years playing on a part of our defense. Not even playing down to anybody's level. We just didn't play our standard of football. And that's something that, I take very seriously. It's something that I know that all of our teammates have the same mindset. We take the field the way we're supposed to. We do a lot of good things. We played better ball in the second half, but at the same time, we dug a hole for ourselves, and that's something that can't happen.
Next one's from Nick Underhill.
How did you guys start playing better in the second half? Was it just kind of realizing like that isn't who you were in the first half and you had to lock in, or was it that simple, or was there a big adjustment?
No, there wasn't major adjustments. It's doing your job, coming back into it, knowing that we all bought in. When it comes to our defense, we've got great personnel at every position, and that's something that we have to rely upon. And at the end of the day, trust is a huge key. As long as we trust each other, we can overcome a lot of things.
Last one's from Luke Johnson.
Hey, Cam, does timing matter in these sorts of things? Like when you say we didn't play our standard of football, is it harder to stomach that when it happens in December and you guys are 3 games away from locking up the number 1 seed?
Every game is important. Each one of these games is important. This game we could have locked up whatever the NFC South division or whatever that is. But at the end of the day, you got to come out and control what you can control, and that's playing the run. Had we, played our standard of ball, eliminated the run like we normally do, we would have made him one-dimensional. We would have seen that he'd be the quarterback. We didn't play our standard of football, and that's just what we have to deal with now.
We're all set. Thanks, Cam.
Yep.
All right, that was defensive end Cam Jordan. JD, I feel like you've said everything that needs to be said, so we'll let you go. We appreciate you coming to us from Lincoln Financial Field. The Saints lose this one tonight, drop their 9-game winning streak after a loss to the Eagles 24-21. They'll be back in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome next week to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. For Caroline Gonzalez, John DeShazier, all of our wonderful production crew, thanks so much for joining us on the New Orleans Saints postgame show presented by Mercedes-Benz.